That's not an ornament. That's a real live thing. On my walk to Literati for Aram's book thing. I think everybody's suspicious of me walking down the street with this camera. Maybe they can tell I'm not from Ann Arbor.
Gossen coming.
Wow, got a little sweaty out there, huh? It's kind of funny, like it's the day of Aram's event. Nobody's in the poetry section. Let's look what we've got here. Let's turn it around. If I'm gonna play around in here. Look at that. Clint is my favorite artist. Ocean Vong is my favorite artist. Paul Tran is my favorite artist. Stephanie Burt is my favorite artist. Ariana is my favorite artist. Claudia Rankin is my favorite artist. Uh-oh. I don't even know this is happening.
Yeah, you guys are somebody else. Actually,
wait, Scott? He's getting something. That was when it was the days of 40s and rain in Iran. So it was fun. Those are all like chill and not.
I'm so excited for you. Of course.
Preferences, super short, and then Julie and I
If I have to exit, I go to here.
sign books.
So, because I'm going to have to roll them to find anything.
Yeah.
Go to Bill's Beer Garden.
That's kind of cool. I don't know where Aram is, so I can't get him.
Fellowships from Breadloaf and the McDowell Colony, and she teaches creative writing at the University of Michigan. Aram Merjoyan teaches creative writing at the University of Michigan, where he's the managing editor of the Michigan Quarterly Review. He's also an editor-at-large at The Rumpus and a 2022 Creative Armenia AGBU Fellow. Aram has previously worked as an editor at the Chicago Review of Books, the Southeastern...
Thanks for having me. There are too many people in this crowd who know me too well, so this is like it's weird. But thank you all for being here. I'm really happy to be here with all of you, and just for all the support this book has gotten. It's been a long time. It's taken 7 years probably from, I guess, like being an idea to being here, and so I'm really grateful for that. I'm just going to read for a few minutes and then we'll talk and keep it low key. I will say after this I'm happy to sign books and vibe with y'all. But if you're enjoying this and like want to enjoy the beautiful weather right now, we're gonna probably saunter over to Bill's Beer Garden after this and keep the party going. I think the only context you really need for the book, from where I'm gonna read, is that this is a story about an Armenian American family that's dealing with the very recent trauma, the realized trauma in this section of one of the youngest member of their generation deciding to end her life and the complications that come from that. I'm not going to spend too much time setting it up, though. I'm just going to read. Edgar Kurkjian slid the kitchen window above the sink to a close and wiped the drenched sill with a paper towel, wondering why he paid an arm and a leg to blast the air conditioning when his wife and children so insistently allowed the cold to seep out of the house. He rinsed red and green bell peppers and left them to dry on a scrap of cheesecloth on the counter. He smashed garlic beneath the broadside of a chef's knife. He chopped white onions until tears welled behind his glasses. He hadn't grilled shish kebab since his mother died. When she was in her final years, they always made these elaborate meals together. If his mother were standing next to him at the counter now, she would scold his lack of seasoning, demand another full bulb of garlic, sprigs of fresh mint and rosemary from her long-abandoned herb garden, flecks of black peppercorn crushed from the grinder, instead of the weak powder pummeled fine as sugar Edgar shook from a McCormick's tin. Chicken broth came to a boil on the stove, rice and egg noodles swimming to the surface, the smell of butter in the air, the scent of his childhood. A side of pilaf with every meal. He had wanted to grill the shish kebab in the backyard, a frigid tall boy of bells two-hearted in hand, slick with condensation in the July sun, but the thunderstorm had entered its second unrelenting day, dousing the state from Lake Michigan to Lake Huron. The driveway was flooded, the yard waterlogged. He might have waited for the weather to cooperate if he wasn't feeling guilty for all the time he was spending out of the house. On a sunny day, the scent of charcoal and seared lamb would have sent his brother and sister-in-law lumbering over from next door with a bottle of wine. They would FaceTime his eldest daughter, Ani, and his niece, Mari. They could sit on the back patio together, a family, enjoying the meal al fresco. Instead, Edgar set the oven to broil and lined up 2 rows of flimsy damp wood skewers like giant toothpicks on a cookie sheet doused with olive oil. He was determined to make the meal spectacular, regardless of the torrential downpour. A fork of lightning, there then gone, in the window. Everyone had left the office early on the eve of the 4th of July holiday. It was rare Edgar found the house empty after returning from work. For once, he could make a mess of the kitchen without tripping over his family. Where were they? Little did they expect they would arrive home to a weeknight feast like the ones his mother used to pull together with ease. It was as if she could stretch time and complete a half-day's preparation in an hour. Her timing was impeccable, honed over decades spent in front of a hissing stove. Everything always landed on the table at once, steaming, elegantly plated, demanding to be consumed. Edgar was already out of sync. The pilaf would be ready before he managed to get the lamb in the oven. He needed to text Caro and Hova before they started planning their own dinner. Not a clean inch of workspace remained. The kitchen's redone granite countertops opened into a small dining area, and the hardwood stretched far past the table into a living room, with its large sectional sofa and easy chair facing a television nestled in the center of 2 floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Beyond that, there was the laundry room exiting out into the garage. He turned on the television and it came to life in the distance. The screen illuminated in the middle of a commercial for one of the many regional car dealerships. Gross Ile might as well have been a tolled-off extension of the Motor City. His family had surely spent a small fortune crossing over the toll bridge in the many decades they'd lived on the island. Edgar wanted to listen to the weather report, worried that if the rain kept coming, the city would cancel tomorrow's fireworks on the river. You mentioned Kelsey because even earlier today, I'm still really adapting to this being a public thing, and so we walked into a bookstore on the other side of town that didn't have it stocked, and Kelsey was the one to go up and be like, hey, my husband's a local author, you should stock his book. And they were like, great, we'll order some copies, and ordered a few copies, but that's something I'd never be able to do on my own. To me, that feels so, just a wall that can't really be breached. But talking about the book in an academic sense for so long, because I did a lot of this during my PhD, I was really invested in rethinking what an Armenian genocide narrative looked like. And being well, what does it look like if the not half the novel is dedicated to this kind of historical trauma porn? and really trying to think, well, what happens, like how do we make this more contemporary? How do we talk about how this affects characters who are dealing with this today, or like have this family history, but it's really fragmented. And I think so much historical fiction that we read like really likes reenacting the past, and I don't think that's a bad thing. And a lot of those novels I really love. I was just writing about this for Literary Hub, which is an online literary website, and they had me writing about the book, and you know, they gave me kind of the classic book essay thing of like, we like what you wrote here, but can you put more of you in it? Like, can you make this more about your identity? And what I ended up putting in there that I thought about a lot is when I was a junior in high school, taking a Middle Eastern Civ class, and we were talking about World War I, and I raised my hand, like having this knowledge and being like, are we going to talk about the Armenian Genocide at all? And the teacher looked at me and like was basically like, I don't know that much about that. Do you want to inform the class? Which is like a fucked up thing to ask a 16-year-old, right? Like, this novel, Marlena, is terrific, and as a reminder, you can buy other books in the store that are not mine, and probably should. Like, but I love your novel a lot, and so that's really meaningful. But when I was doing my PhD, and with this writer named Mark Weingartner, who for anyone who knows the Godfather books, like he was the guy that Puzo kind of was like, you get to continue writing these after I pass away, and so he's written some of the Godfather stuff. But he gave us this task where he's like, pick any 10 novels you want that you think you really are going to love, or that like you've been meaning to read for a long time, and just think about how they're put together, and tell me, he said, tell me where the end of Act 1 is in each one. Like that was the assignment. It was a really good assignment. And so throughout the semester, you know, just at our own pace, we were reading these 10 novels, and I kept kind of realizing like, oh, there actually is a point, usually about a third or halfway through the novel, where something very serious happens, and like kind of there's a break or some sort of, and after that it made it way easier to visualize. And so I had to write the entirety of the first part before I could think about the interlude or the second part.
And then I want to ask some questions about Michigan. This novel has a big cast of characters. It's a family novel, and you inhabit the minds of many different people, including many women, quite sensitively, I felt. How did that feel as a writer to like move around in all these different minds? Was it hard to kind of sync up the master plot, kind of moving between imaginations and experiences? Like, how did you manage that, and were any characters maybe particularly hard or particularly easy?
Yeah, I mean, it was really difficult. In early drafts of the novel, like there was more jumping around than there is now, to give you some sense of how this is set up.
Such a Michigan book. I mean, it's just like truly like it's so faithful to place. I thought that was really interesting. Like I'm not familiar with all the places in this book, but I'm familiar with some of them. And I noticed that I don't think you fictionalized anything about Michigan, right? Or did you a little bit?
I'd say the only thing I really fictionalized is like there's like a high school on the island of Gross Ile, and like that high school is not, I didn't go to high school on Gross Ile. I have no idea what their high school's like. It's probably smaller and more insular. It's like basically Pioneer High School, but like on an island. And so
you were like, I'm gonna do whatever.
Like I was just like, whatever. Like if they were, so that's,
all high school is high school.
But other than that, yeah, I was pretty loyal to setting and geography. Teaching gave me more confidence in this book because it kind of forced me to take the advice I always give my students, which is find what's non-negotiable in your work. And often in writing workshops, like there's this training we're built. Like, I mean, and there's sort of almost like this studently way of people like saying things that they think the teacher wants to hear, right? And in writing workshops, that can become really toxic really quickly. And I'm always cognizant of that in my teaching. Like I teach very question-based classes. I very much emphasize artistic agency, and try to give my students like, well, like tell me what you're trying to do, and like have some confidence in that, because everyone along the way is going to tell you no. You know, even with this book, like for a year and a half, like agents kept telling me exactly what I knew I was going to hear, which was like, I think you need more historical context. I really think that there needs to be more connection between the past and the present. And when I finally found my agent who understood it, we like just made the book better for what it was. and it was the same thing when we sent it out on submission. We got all of these editors from big houses being like, oh, there needs to be more of a connection here. It feels like the story's too fragmented. And it's like, and then you have to ask yourself, well, like,
Yeah.
to me, that was non-negotiable. To me, that was part of the book. It was an imperative part of the book. And it made it so much better when I found the right people to help me accomplish it. The two editors that I worked with at Harper, the main one being Ryan Amato, who's really great, immediately saw it and was like, and I told him, I was like, I'm not going to put more of the Armenian Genocide in this book. Like, I don't want to. And he just helped me work around it, and in fact made it way better. Like, helped me rebalance some things, helped me see actually where some of that stuff could be cut.
Yeah.
And so once you find that, then you have something that you're like really proud of because you know that it's how you wanted it to look.
Yeah.
Sort of like beginning with the Armenian Genocide is like, this is right after that first chapter. It's the beginning of the second chapter. Beginning with food for me was kind of another way of getting it out of the way. And it also like is honestly kind of used as a joke throughout the novel. I shouldn't say a joke, but like what happens, what you find out is that because Carl, Edgar's older brother, knocks on the door and is like, hey, we gotta go. This meal never really gets finished. There's a point where there's just like all of this Armenian food in their fridge just spoiling because no one wants it. They're like, like, I just want pizza. Like, why has no one thought to bring over taco dip? Like, and so there's
actually,
kind of,
it creates like tension actually.
Yeah,
how much
yeah.
food there is going bad. It
Right,
puts like
right.
real pressure on the plot.
And so I think a lot of times kind of identity-centered work, like the food is meant to speak for the culture, or that food is often meant to be this thing of like showing how culture is being erased or kind of like boiled down. And so it's like, oh no, like we don't have grandma's latmanjun recipe anymore, and it's not really that in this book. It's kind of like we just want to go out for pizza again, but we can't because we have all this food spoiling in the fridge. And so it is a point of tension. And I think the way I would love people to read that is that it's kind of being like pushing against a trope a little bit. This trope of like food is the one thing we maintain in culture, because I don't know that that's always true, and I think sometimes it can be kind of used hyperbolically in fiction as a point of connection or as a point of kind of like showing off one's ethnicity. And I hope that doesn't, in the portion I just read, it probably feels that way, but I hope it doesn't feel that way by the end of the book. Yeah, Dan.
So I had thought of a million questions since you've been speaking. So I'm going to try to sort of like synthesize two of them. But you sort of talked about how like these traps that you want to avoid that you've seen other writers fall into, and one of the ones that you started talking about in the very first question was like doing historical fiction or doing this kind of like with food, like I'm going to tell this story of people living today through some, I don't know, like event that most of us, like feel, some connection to. Like in the U.S., I was brought up, told like my whole life about my sort of Irish identity, and I'm like, I'm actually pretty far removed from that, and like pizza and Bell's Too Hard is sort of more, proximate. But there's this like way I experienced reading that first section in your book of you always end up kind of sitting with the character. There's this sort of like tension being pulled.
I'm working on another book about Michigan, unsurprisingly. This one much closer to home. Anyone who knows about the Gelman plume, the water issue, that's very local. The EPA just labeled this like a super priority last year. During a different administration, so like I have no, but I'm very interested in kind of that and what environmental problems look like at home right here in Ann Arbor.
Cool. Look forward to reading it. Congrats, Aram.
Pop culture reference.
I
worked out. Yeah, I had the flexibility to and be like, you're keeping an eye on what you're essentially.
Alright, it's probably a good feeling the next time, right?
Like you said, I gotta practice. Oh my gosh, that's super cool. Allison's great.
She is amazing, and she just sold the rumpus, right?
Yeah, to Roxanne.
Yes, that seems like a real, very
game
fancy.
changer. Very fancy.
And this is my son Carlo.
Hi. Thanks so much for coming.
Okay, this is the post reading and book signing playing in the bookstore. So
Hi there. Just a heads up, we're going to be closing in about 10 minutes.
okay. Can't do anymore. All right, here we go. Aaron Coleman is my favorite artist. Kevin Killian's my favorite artist. Sarah Perry is my favorite artist. Ivan is my favorite artist.
Very proudly
See you shortly.
got right in the way.
I didn't use guitar much because that was like well, that's why there was a time where like State Street felt like, oh, that's an adult.
I'm trying to get in.
Adam does.
Safest.
It's 2B4B, right, bro?
That's right, bro.